right, so again, what I asked people to do was to start up Eclipse, create a new project that just call it ArrayFun, create a package underneath there, whatever you typically call your package, and then create a class underneath that that's called ArrayFun also. I'm going to give you more of the code than we had last class, so you're going to have a lot of this written for you already, because the majority of you in here have either taken the C# class already or are also in the C# class, so you've all done this before. So what I want you to do is this. Let me show it to you because it's easier than you following those steps, okay? So we've started up Eclipse. I've got Visual Studio going here, so let me stop that. All right, so we've started up Eclipse. Okay, I've already got a thing called ArrayFun, so I'm going to call mine ArrayFun too. Everybody cool with that? I don't care what you call it as long as it's something reminiscent of ArrayFun, so when I grade it, you know, type of an idea. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do a file. Let me just make sure everything there, it's all closed. This is getting way too big. All right, so file, new, Java project. Again, I'm just going to call it ArrayFun2 because I already see that it says the name of this project already exists. So I'm just going to make it ArrayFun2 or 12, and click Finish. All right, then I'm going to right mouse click on the name of the project, go to New, go down to Package, and the way we've been doing it, again, has always been edu.blackhawk. and -jscott, yours however you set yours up, and Finish. Then we've got the package. We're going to right mouse click again and put in our class. We're only going to have one class. We won't have any demo or anything in here for what we're about to do. Okay? And I'm going to again just call it ArrayFun, one word. Luke asked the question, do we need a main? It's not going to matter. You'll see why in just a minute. Okay? It's really and truly not going to matter. So just click Finish. Now, rather than you having to type in a lot of this stuff, I'm going to make it easier on you. So other than the line that's got your package statement, for right now, just highlight this because we're about to remove it. Everybody hear what I said? We're about to remove it. Okay? All right. Then what I'd like you to do, and you're all smart enough, we're doing it a little different way because I want to make sure we've got enough time to finish this. All right? So what I want you to do is go over to your My Computer and go over to your P drive. You know the drill, where all the stuff is for this class, the 152, 143, Java 1, Spring 2015 in class, with today's date on it. All right, if I did that too fast or you go, I don't have a clue as to what you're doing, what I'm saying is go out here, and let me make that a little bigger, the font size a little bigger. So if you go out there, all right, right there, what you're going to find is this stuff. The file we care about is this one right here, because I've written over half the program for you already. Actually, I wrote the whole program, but I stripped out half of it. All right, so I want you to take and right mouse click on this file that's called ArrayFunClass.java. Right mouse click on it and open it up in Notepad++. All right. Now, please look up on the screen. I want you to take that entire file and copy it into your program. But please look. You're going to have to change your package statement. See that? All right. So I'm going to grab all of it. Control A, Control C to copy it. Get back into Eclipse and just paste the whole thing in. Once we do that, you see you've got a couple hundred lines in there already. And again, change that package statement. Did all that make sense that we just went over? All right, so I want you to be right here in just a minute. If you have questions, just ask. All right? Yes? You have what up? Nope, what? Nope. Okay. All right, I'll be right over there to help you. I just want to mention one thing before we get going, is some of you were not in the last class, so you didn't hear this. Again, you'll notice we are sans, meaning we don't have a lab assistant. John Wanda threw out his back really bad. He's probably going to have to go to the hospital. He doesn't know how long he'll be out. He'll be out until his back comes back again. But as of right now, he doesn't have a back. So if you've been sending him emails, because he told me to let people know this, he said, Jeff, people have been emailing me. He said it hurts to get up to try to answer an email. All right, he's thrown out his back several times. He said in his life, never, ever, ever this bad. All right, well, if you had the problem, another way that you can do this, you got it. Okay, good. Anybody else who's having a problem getting this stuff copied over, I want you to be right here, in other words. And then we'll take it from there. But then we've got the beginning of the program already written. That's what I'm more concerned with. When we end up running this, if you look up on the screen, so we're going to add all this code. That's what today is about. But just so you see it, when we run it, we do a run, eventually it's going to come up and look like this. Kind of an ugly menu, but that's fine. So I'm going to put a 1 in there and give me 25 numbers. Looks similar. It's very similar to what we looked at in the last class period. All right, and it shows them in their original order. Then if I put in a 2, it puts them into ascending order. If I put in a 3, it puts them in descending order. If I put in a 4, it gives me the biggest number. If I put in a 5, it gives me the smallest number. If I put in a 6, it gives me the average. If I put in a 7, it gives me the sum of them. And if I put in an 8, it ends the program. Does that make sense? It's very similar to what we looked at last hour. So rather than dwelling on all that stuff, I tried to make it as simple as possible, but I want you to have to type in something in here. All right, so I'm going to close that one and go back to this one. Has everybody been able to do this? And if you haven't, raise your hand, please. All right, so I'm taking it, you've all got your own package statement up on the top. You've got the comment here, same comment that we had in the last class. Here's our import statements. And I may have ended up sorting this a different way. It looks like I'm not using this one, but we'll go back to that anyway. All right. Now, one thing you may notice, and you may or may not care about, but I'm just going to tell you this, especially for next semester, the programs get more complex, as you'd probably guess, so you do more imports. I have found that if you're going to key in your import statements yourself, putting them in alphabetic order really helps. And just so you know, when you get into Android, you're sometimes importing 50 different things, literally, 50 different packages, because of the way they broke up Android. It really helps to put stuff in alphabetic order. I mean, here it's not tough. It's 4 of them. All right? Okay. So, at the top of the program here are our variables. Notice that every variable that's in there is static. All right, because all of them are going to be used in main, and since main is static, all the variables that we're going to use, because we're using them in main directly or indirectly, they must be static. All right? And again, static implies 2 things in this language. Static applies both 1, in other words, there's only going to be 1 of these for the program. All right? And it also implies that you can use static variables without even having to create an instance of the class. That won't even matter in here. Okay? Now, here's main. And believe it or not, this is a really good main. And it's a really good main because for 2 reasons. First, it's small. It's very compact. And second, it only does one thing. It presents the menu to the user. All right? And notice I got a thing in here that's called again. People say, why don't you call it again? Because if you want to run the program again, why don't you call it continue? Because continue is a keyword. So we can't do that. So I just tend to use again. It's not the greatest word, but it works. All right? So the whole idea of this is we're putting the user basically into an infinite loop until she or he enters an 8, which is for exiting the program. Does all that make sense? But they could run this program indefinitely. if they wanted to do so. All right. So, again, main calls present menu. In present menu, it's still not a very long method. That's the whole thing. That thing right there that you see, this thing right here. All right, again, when I ran it, it brought up that kind of like a message box, that dialogue. That's all this is doing, is it's creating that dialogue. That's it. And I think I'm going with the one that you've got now, so you've already got that stuff. I thought that would be a waste of your time to keep keying this stuff in. All right. I know that sometimes when, not for your class, but I'm teaching a class in iOS development, and the book that we got for the class, it didn't come in until the end of February. You can imagine that kind of makes it tough on a class. So I found a free one online, not the same book, but a free one. And I've been doing the projects that are in that book. There's 22 chapters. I've fallen a little bit behind. I'm just finishing up chapter 8. All right. But the point is, a lot of those lectures, I'm keying stuff in. And I don't think people particularly want to go watch a video to watch somebody keying stuff in. All right. So I tried to keep this down to a minimum. So we set this up. Once we get it, we put up an option pane with an input dialog box that presents all of this stuff. Then we tell you, notice, again, it does one thing. It presents the menu, but then it calls routines. It tells you to make your selection, and then based off of the selection you make, it calls the appropriate array function. I tried to come up with names that were indicative of what was going on in here. Now, every single person who's in there, in this class, you should all understand, if you look at these two lines in blue here, make selection must return something. And it must return something because whatever it's returning, we're stuffing it into selection. Does that make sense? And call appropriate array function doesn't return anything. But in order to do it, we need that selection that we just made in make selection because we're passing that in here. Does all that make sense? Because that's stuff you all have to understand. So we've got main. And again, main presents our menu. We present our menu. Then we tell you to make a selection. And based off of your selection, we call the appropriate function. All right? Make selection. Well, this is kind of a pain in the butt, but notice what we're doing here. This is going to catch if we put in any negative number or if we put in a number greater than 8. That's what the stuff in blue is going to do. We just tell you, hey, you got to put in a number between 0 and 8. And then we present the menu to them again. If they put in something that's non-numeric, that's going to be down here. And we just tell you you made an illegal selection, and we present the menu again. So it's fairly clean. And then eventually, they're going to make a selection, and that's what we return. So that return the selection gets stuffed right into here. Does all that make sense? I'm just going to keep talking until somebody asks a question. All right? And then based on that, as it says, we call the appropriate array function. And what that is that's going to be a switch statement. This says if it's 0, we call print original array. If it's a 1, we call fill array, then print the original array. Okay? And if it's a 2, we're going to call sort array ascending and print that out. If it's a 3, we're going to call sort descending and print it out. If it's a 4, we're going to call largest and print it out. If it's a 5, we're going to call smallest and print it out. If it's a 6, we're going to call average and print it out. If it's a 7, we're going to call sum and print it out. If it's an 8, we're going to exit. Does all that make sense? We've told the user to enter in one of 9 values. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. And that's what this is handling. If they put in anything else, we just break out of it. There's nothing to do. We could have put a message in there or something, but I chose not to. All right. So that gets us to right here. So I'd like you to move up. If you copied everything in the way I told you to, you should be around line 144, somewhere around there. But the whole thing, there's 7 full pages to type. And there's a couple lines on the top of page 8, but I've already given you all of page 1, all of page 2, all of page 3, and almost all of page 4. So like I said, we've cut down what we needed to type in greatly. And I don't think there's anything that we just went over that any of you don't get. And the only reason I can say that with fair certainty is I asked if there were any questions as I went through it. No one had any. Yes. Because you got them stuck in there until they enter a value between 0 and 8. That's what the try and catch are doing. If you put in something non-numeric, it doesn't accept it. If you put in something that's less than 0 or greater than 8, it just presents the menu again. Yes. But again, the idea is we're trying to write at least semi-modular code where each thing is basically doing its job. Now you notice that that one that we just looked at, it's doing a few more things in that the present menu is presenting the menu and it's asking you to make a selection and it's calling the function, but probably could have written that to do it through main also, but it just seemed cleaner to do it this way. All right, so again, that gets us everybody down to here now to the fill array. Now think about what it is we're trying to do in fill array. All right, literally, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines that we put between these curlies. And out of the 5 lines, 2 of them are curly braces. So we have to put in a for loop. You've seen this before. Very similar to the for loop we used last class. In fact, I like using LCV for loop control variable. Spell though. That's it. That's the whole routine right there. And the sort array ascending, you like that one even more because that whole routine, there's one line we put in there. One. Okay? Think about what this is doing. This is very similar to what you saw, those of you who were in there last hour. This is saying start with 0 and go to 25, so go to 24 rather. So 25 times, I want you to generate a random number between 1 and 100 and stuff it into the current array location. And since we want to be able to have the original array, I'm saying also take that after you've stuffed it in there and copy it to the array that's called original. This is an array, and this is an array. Numbers is the array we manipulate throughout the entire program. Original is just an array that doesn't change once we fill it up. So really, I guess I could have called this fill arrays because we're filling up both arrays. Any questions on that one? Again, if you do come up with questions, let me know. Or, you know, I'm not trying to be funny here. Read the chapter. What's really nice for the sort ascending is it's arrays.sort numbers. And guess what? That's the whole program. Now it says in here it doesn't like something. Import array. I don't know which one it is. It's not that one. All right. It's undefined for type array. As arrays, yes it is. Thank you. Arrays.sort. Thank you. So now I just imported something that I don't need. So I'm going to get rid of that because I don't need this. Thank you, those of you who are smarter than me are smart enough to catch it. All right. Arrays dot sort numbers. That sorts it into ascending order. Now, if I go online here and I go out to Google, does Java have an array reverse method? All right. You go out and you look at Stack Overflow. The guy says, basically no, but you can write your own. Or you go out to Stack Overflow and grab theirs, which I'm not going to lie to you, that's pretty much what I did. All right? Literally, I wrote this, the whole program, probably in about 15 minutes. So where there was something I wasn't sure of, I did go out to Stack Overflow. Now, I'm not saying you do that. All right? I'm not excusing myself for doing it, but I'm just telling you that's what I did. So you're going to see that the program we write is going to be very similar, or the method, to this one. All right? All right. No questions then on fill array? No questions on sort array ascending, correct? Then let's jump down to sort array descending. It's a little longer. It's probably about, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 lines. All right? So I'm going to grab, because I've already done a for loop up here, so I'm just going to copy that in. Right? Bless you. Oops. Forget that for a second, sorry. Doing stuff out of order here. It's not I, it's LCV. And again, if you go to that same Stack Overflow that I just showed you, they explain everything that's going on in here much better than I could. Okay? This is not a good way to program. I should have just literally gone in there and Googled a Java descending order sort and looked at it and then rewrote it myself. I didn't, but that's what I should have done. That's what you should be doing in here. All right. But again, what that's going to do is, as I showed you in the last class, it's going to take an array that looks like this. The ascending one that we just looked at will do this. It'll put it in ascending order, but the descending one then will do this. All right. I don't know why Java doesn't have a reverse method written into it. All right. So we've now gone through and we've got our sort ascending and we've got our sort descending. So now we have to find out our largest value. And you'll notice with all these right now it just says return 0. Because if we run this, at least the program won't blow up. So with what we've done so far, you don't have to do this, but if you look up on the screen here with what we've done, if I run this, again, if I want to show the values that are currently in the array, what's that going to show me? 0. Okay, it's not working yet. 1. Enter 25 new numbers. Okay, don't know if that's working or not. Oh, I don't have my print statements yet. But I do have my stuff for sorting it in the ascending and sorting it in the descending. Those are now in there. All right. Right now, what we're going to do is get the largest and get the smallest, and then the average and the sum. All right. And we'll get done with all of it, except probably the print statements before the break. Okay. There's not really that much code that you have to enter in here. All right. So I'm going to replace this. I'm down to the largest value. If you're typed in everything the way I did it, I'm on around line 170. And I'm going to come in here and again, first do the, looks like the largest. Again, I'm going to steal that for loop. That's it. So I'm assuming that the largest one is the first thing in the array. In fact, I don't even have to start with 0 anymore, right? Can't I start with 1? Anything you can do to make it a little easier, make your program run a little slicker, is a good thing. Now, especially those of you who were not here in the last class, if you look up on the screen for a second, hopefully you realize with the stuff that's in here, if I change the word largest to the word smallest, and if I change this greater than sign to a less than sign, I now have my next routine written, my smallest one. So that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of this, copy it, even if you're still keying, I'll come back to it in just a minute. I'll paste it in here, bless you, and I'll change this to smallest, and I'll change that to less than smallest, change that to smallest, and change that to smallest. And now I've got those done. All right. So again, my largest and my smallest are the same except for the name of the variable. And with largest, I want to check if it's greater. If it's for smallest, I want to check if it's less than. We now have 5 out of the 7 pages written. Does everybody have this largest one so I can move down? what it's doing is it's comparing the thing with the thing next to it, and it's swapping it. So what it's doing is basically it's setting it up, and I'm not sure which direction it's doing it in. If it's doing an ascending or, but it's so if I've got five numbers, if I got 37, 41, 8, 63, and 9, it's comparing each one of them and flipping them as necessary. So when it gets all done, what's going to happen is the 9's going to be on top. So the next time it only has to check one less. All right. Especially those of you who are not in the previous class, is there anything we've gone over thus far that doesn't make sense? All right, then the next thing to do is to figure out the array average. And when you think about it, what the average is we can call sum of array values to add up and sum up all those values, and then divide it, all right, and then we'll divide it by the length of the array. Why am I telling you that? Because the whole thing is 2 lines long. That's the whole routine. Now, as of right now, if you look up on the screen, this isn't going to work correctly because as of right now, sum of array values is just going to return 0. So we've got to write that in just a second, and we will. All right, and remember, we talked about this last hour. Why did we do that? We casted right there because we want to make sure that if the average is 63.57, we want to keep that 0.57. And if we don't cast, we lose that. Because what we're attempting to do here is to divide an integer by an integer. Remember, integer by integer throws away any decimal remainder automatically before it gives you the answer. But hopefully what you've noticed in here is most of the routines that we're writing are somewhere around 5 to 10 lines long. And that's good. Makes it much easier to debug. All right. Let's go to here to our sum of array values. And that one's, probably about 7 lines. Again, I want to put that for loop in here, so I'm going to copy it again. That's that whole routine. That's not LCV. There we go. So there's our variable that's called sum. We're setting it equal to 0, and we're going through this 25 times. So in essence, again, what we're doing in this routine is we're saying, okay, what I want to do is sum is equal to 45 plus 67 plus 88 plus 60 plus 6 plus 55 all the way through 25 times. All right. Now this you may or may not have seen before. You're going to work with that more next semester. But to say system.exit 0 is a normal program termination. When you say system.exit, you can put any number in there you want. Normally, if you put a negative number in there, it's a bad thing. Why would you put a negative number in there then? Well, if for some reason you're attempting to do something and the resources aren't available, or you put in a wrong name, or you put in whatever. All right? But 0 means normal program termination. So what we're saying is, oh, somebody chose to exit the program, so just get out. and end normally. And that's all we're doing right there. All right, so you notice we've got a lot of these, but these print things are going to be the print largest, print smallest, print average, and print sum. They're going to be almost the same routine. All right, it's just we're printing something different in them. So let's run through and see how much of this we can get through. If we get through all of it by the break, great. All right. So for printing the original array, and I did this a little bit differently, and I'll explain what I did when we get done in just a second. Yep. Thank you. All right, again, and he's got big shoulders, so I'm sure he can take it. But again, with what Eric had asked before, he's right. The next routine that we're going to write, whether you're printing the original array or you're printing the numbers one, you're pretty much just printing an array, correct? And it really is the same array. It's just that it's either going to be in the order it was originally or in a different order, but it's the same one. So really what I could have done is just made one routine here, and should have done was make one routine there, because all I have to do is grab all this, and I have to make one change. All right, this one, and there's an error in here, please look up on the screen. That should have actually, well, actually numbers would work in there, but I really should have, for consistency, I should have really said original right there. All right, and down here, then it becomes numbers. All right, so I'll just change this to, I think I just said the numbers array or something like that. Yep. Now, if you look up here, you're like, well, wait a minute, you got this thing up here. That's why I wrote two of them. All right, because if I want it, if it's been sorted, I can print the kind of order it was sorted in. I can say the numbers array in ascending order, the numbers array in descending order. Not that you really have to do that. Most people could look at it and know. All right, but I guess I did change this around a little bit. So it says the numbers array in so that's what that turns into. Again, Again, the idea behind this is we're just trying to make it as simple as possible for the person running the program. Okay? And if the person running the program is a younger person, they may be very good as far as being able to work with Java and run this and run that, etc. But they may not have the number skills to even know what ascending or descending is. I was telling the students that I take a bunch of these courses online, some free, some not free, from a site called udemy.com. And they put one out there about the new Apple Watch. All right, learn to write Apple Watch apps. The kid teaching it is 12. I watched a lecture from a different 12-year-old who's from India, and he's funny because he screws up a couple times and he says the word SH twice, which I thought was funny, okay? But, when you're sitting there watching videos late at night, sometimes stuff like that sounds funny to you. But this kid seems like he's all American. He's just got a little, he's got a T-shirt on. His dad introduces him. He's like, hey, how you doing, But kind of cool. So again, we're going to run through the array, and notice I made in both cases, I made them strings. So it's much easier. All I'm doing is printing that stuff out. I'm not doing any calculations with it. So I might as well make it a string so I can just put each one on their own line like that. Make it look a little bit nicer. And this will say ascending, descending, etc. So look what's left. We have to do print largest, print smallest, etc. These are all just, these are all just J option panes, every one of them. So literally there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of code left and we're done. So I'm going to grab that J option pane from up here. I'll have to change it, but I'm going to grab it from up here and I'm going to just copy it in here. And then I'll make my changes. And once I've got the largest, again, I'm just going to copy it in and change the word largest to the word smallest. Thinking about this, the next time I teach this, that what I'm going to make people do is not only do this and key this stuff in as part of the assignment, but you're going to have to put in comments. And half of your grade is going to be based on how good your comments are or are not. That's it. That's the whole program. Yes. It gets passed in up here. Original, ascending, or descending. That's a good question. Yeah, it's from the selection that we make and the call the appropriate function. That's all. Yeah, you're right. I should have mentioned that. That's a very good question. When you, for instance, okay, when you call average value right there, okay? Not that one, this one. So when you call this is going to do the sorting, but when you print it, this will add the word in there, descending, when you do the print. And I really tried to modularize this more than even the one that was in C# by having one routine to do the calculations and another routine to do the printing. All right. So now, I have no idea, but I didn't see anything that was lit up, so that's good. All right, so 0. All right, I haven't filled it yet, so I just had it set up so it was all zeros. All right, so here's a 1. Okay, there's our values. Well, that's pretty good. A 2. Ascending looks like it works. A 3. Descending looks like it works. A 4. There's the biggest. A 5. There's the smallest. A 6. There's the average. A 7. There's the sum. Notice if I put something that's negative in, it just says out of range, must be 1 to 8. If I put something greater than 8 in, out of range, must be 8. If I put in something that's non-numeric, it just says illegal selection made, must be numeric, and it brings it up again. All right, and I say 8, and I'm done. Now, we went through that very quickly. I understand that. All right, so take a look at it. And again, there's no class. I'm not here Wednesday if you didn't hear that previously, all right? But send me an email or ask me a week from today, all right, if you've got a question. What we'll do now is let's take a break. We're going to take an extended break because I want to produce this. So let's come back at 11:15, and I'm going to spend about 15 minutes going over the material that's in the chapter. I've already lectured on that, but I just want to go over a couple things quickly with you. All right, so come back, please, at 11:15.